Ciao besties, welcome back to my channel. I know that I've been away for a really long time. I've been quite busy traveling the world. I've attended Adobe Max this year. If you want to learn more than that, you should definitely follow me on Instagram, but this video is not about that. So today I really just wanted to have fun designing a passion project because I haven't had the chance to do that in ages, and of course I couldn't not take you guys along with me. The brand in question is going to be a product-based brand because this is usually what I do. I've made an entire series about a service-based brand and how it's different in the way that we design it and plan it and all of that. So in this video I want to just go back to my roots, do something that I do quite often for clients. Let's go immediately on Pinterest so I can show you my idea for this video. I am so excited. The brand that we're going to design today is called Ariste and it sells premium spices. First of all, the name, I love the name. It comes from the Greek god Aristeus, who's the god of fruit trees, vegetable plants, and of course herbs and spices. Let's take a look at the brand mission. They want to sell premium, high quality spices, but they don't want to come off as intimidating. Like, this is not a brand for chefs or experienced cooks. This is something for everyone. So they want to be friendly, welcoming, approachable, while still keeping a refined look to match the quality of their products. This is for people who want to elevate their everyday dishes. So we kind of have to find the right balance between the two. This is of course not a real strategy. Like, if this were a real client, we will handle this like completely differently. I have a whole video about my strategy and how it actually affects my design process if you want to check that out. But in this case, we're just designing, having fun, because I am the client, so it doesn't matter. But it's always good to kind of have some sort of strategy, even if you're doing passion projects. It's kind of an exercise. Enough with the talking, let's take a look at the actual board. For the typography, as you're seeing, I don't have a really like specific idea for it. I kind of want to keep it as simple as possible because I usually do like a lot of type manipulation. If this is your first time watching any of my videos, my specialty is manipulating typography. So I always like put a lot of focus into the logo and making sure that the typography itself kind of embodies like the essence of the brand. And we're gonna still do that in this case, but I don't want to go like too crazy with the manipulations because I want to focus on illustration. So I think that having a cleaner logo would help us with keeping that refined professional look that we're looking for, and with the illustration we can have fun and add that friendliness, welcoming essence of the brand, you know? So as you're seeing, we have like a lot of different examples of the illustrations. Once again, we are doing a style of illustration that doesn't really require a lot of drawing skills, because if you didn't know, I'm not really a good illustrator. I don't really think that I can draw that well, but this doesn't mean that I cannot add any illustrations to my work. This is kind of a pep talk to myself, but also to all the other people who feel the same. We can do this, guys. We have it in us. Basically, all these illustrations are very square, very pointy. You don't really have to draw everything. I think that most of these are made just with the pen tool. One element that I really want to add on these illustrations is texture. I want to represent like the action of the spices, like making the food taste better. I don't just want to create like the ingredients that the spices are made of. I think that the graininess would be like the spices on the food, because at the end of the day, this is what we're selling. We're not just selling like the product, we're selling what the product can do for you if used with other food. You know, I don't want to spoil everything now. I have a lot more thoughts on this, so we're gonna just talk about it when we're doing it. So I think we should just jump straight into Illustrator. As you're seeing, I'm very excited about this because once again, we're designing something that I love. I love spices. I love spicy food. Not hot spicy food, but like food with spices. So yeah, so these are the fonts that I kind of picked out for this branding. I am really like torn between two ideas. There's two ways that we can go about this. On the left side, we have like more rounded fonts. I call them corporate fonts. And on the right side, we have bolder, more linear and geometrical fonts. Fonts that kind of already have a bit of personality in the typography. I don't know. We have like these corporate fonts, as I said. I call them that because big brands and usually agencies like really sometimes use very simple fonts, but the logos are so cool and the branding itself is amazing. But when I kind of stop and look at the logo, it's most times very simple, which is, you know, difficult for me to kind of process because I do so much type manipulation. So when I see like a really clean logo that works, I'm like, like, should I try that? So I'm kind of tempted to do this. I feel like this font here specifically is so cool. It's called Larkin, and I feel like maybe this would match really well with like the sharpness of the illustrations. But on the other side, I feel like these type of fonts are more calling to me and my style. At the end of the day, this is a passion project, so we can do whatever I want to do. So I feel like we're just gonna go with these fonts, especially because I chose this font. This font is called Casa Grande, and it's from my besties at Zeta Fonts. I love them. I was looking at it, and it has like an entire typeface with like different fonts inside of the family, which is super interesting to me. And this already kind of gives me a better inspiration for a branding, because I already have an entire family that I can use and that I know that works. I was looking at all the variations until I saw this one. This font has grain in it, and I was like, oh my god, no way, like this is exactly what I want to do with the illustrations. So I was like, this type is kind of calling me. So yeah, sorry to the other one. Maybe I'm gonna do a really clean logo in the future, but not today. But one of the things that I was noticing on this font is that this S is very cool, obviously, but I feel like maybe like from a distance it might like affect a little bit the legibility of the logo, and I don't really want to do that because we're working with spices. The jar will be very small, so I don't want to make the logo a little bit hard to read because it's going to be very small in the packaging. So I think that we can change this S a little bit and kind of take another S from another font, which is this font here called Eclipse. I think that this S is very interesting because it looks a little bit more like an S, and it's kind of already connecting to the T, which is something that we can do on the other font. I feel like we could borrow this S from this font and make it work. So we're just going to do that. Let's copy everything and let's start working on this type. I'm so excited. As you're seeing, of course, this S is a little bit thicker, so I'm gonna use one of my tricks that I always do when I want to change like the width of a letter. It's very easy actually. I'm just gonna create an outline in white so I can kind of understand how much I'm taking off until I have basically the same width as the other letters. I feel like this kind of works. I'm actually gonna use some guidelines, and then I'm just gonna merge these two and use the shape builder tool to remove this. Oh my god, it looks so cute. So this is pretty much the primary logo. Now I'm gonna create a second version, so a secondary logo. Now for the logo mark, I kind of wanted to create a custom shape. I feel like this S that we have created is super fun. I noticed that if we grab this and we turn this around and we kind of join it to the other, it kind of looks like an A, which is very convenient for us since the name of the brand is Ariste, so it begins with an A. One last thing that I wanted to add to make it like a little bit more clear that it's an A, I just want to add that dot here, and I don't know, I feel like this is very simple, very clean, but it's like a really recognizable logo that we can definitely use later on in the branding, and especially maybe the packaging. Spoiler. So far we have just worked in black and white, which is basically the main rule of branding. You always have to work in black and white. Your logo suite does not work if it doesn't work in black and white. The color needs to be added later on. I've actually not really talked about the color palette just yet, so let's try these colors. So obviously I want to use some greens and some yellows, like earthy tones that kind of remind of the actual spices that we're going to use and the food. But I also wanted to use some really bright, fun colors because, as I said, I really want to convey that friendliness and approachability through the illustrations. So I thought, what's the best way to do that? Color. I love this palette. I'm really obsessed. That blue, that pink, that yellowy olive oil green, I love it. So after this, usually in my client process, there's another step that I never really showed on this channel. I don't know why, but it is very important when it comes to branding. You can have the best logo suite in the world, the best color palette, but if you don't have a brand typography suite, your branding means nothing. You have to have fonts that go along with the logo suite and the branding and everything that you're doing. So in this case, I also chose the typography, header font, the font for the body copy, so the font that's going to be used for longer text like packaging, website, and all of that. And then we also have the accent font, a font that's just gonna spice up if you will, the branding, and it's just gonna be a fun addition to everything. But usually what I do when I'm creating the typography suite is that I put the logo, the header font, the body copy, and the accent font. This is kind of the hierarchy, so you already can see how they're gonna work together. And I was lucky enough, as I said, that this font already had like different fonts within its family, and they obviously work super well together. For the body copy, I didn't really want to use any of these fonts. I feel like they are a little bit too much for longer text, so I chose another font by Zeta Fonts. It really resembles fonts like Futura, Cabo, Leak Spartan, which is the free alternative to Futura. But I really wanted to use that. I really wanted to stick with the same type foundry. I don't know why. Okay, so the moment we have all been waiting for, the illustrations. We're just gonna have fun with them. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be symmetrical or anything like that. We can just do whatever we want with the pen tool. I'm gonna use some reference images just to get the shape right. Kind of. For example, I'm gonna take this image as a reference, and with the pen tool, I'm just gonna start tracing it, kind of. Okay, this is super fun. This is super fun. This is super cute. But there's one thing that I don't like about this illustration, and it's the colors. I chose this color palette exactly because I really wanted to have fun with the color. So my goal for the illustrations is to use basically the opposite colors of the actual ingredient. If this were a more realistic eggplant, we would use these colors, but I don't want to do that. It's already looking so much more fun. I really love this idea of having like these really sharp edges and really contrasting colors, because again, we want to convey the fact that you don't have to be a professional chef or cook to use these spices. The sharp edges indicate that cooking should be fun. So given the fact that it doesn't have to be a perfect smooth process, the illustrations don't have to be smooth and perfect either. I don't know, I feel like if we made like super detailed illustrations of the spices, I feel like that would be so much more intimidating. It's still kind of a metaphor for cooking and not being that good at it just yet. This is me like projecting like I really want to be a good cook, but I'm not. So I took some time, and in the same exact way that you saw, I made other ingredients, but of course they're not finished because we need to add the element that's gonna make everything come together, the grain. So let's move to Photoshop. We could technically do this like also on Illustrator because there are brushes that have grain and all of that, but I honestly prefer it just to do it on Photoshop. It's easier, and I really want to work with an actual brush instead of like a vector brush. So I've imported all the illustrations in one document, and we're just gonna work on them one by one to kind of create different levels of grain and using different colors. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a first layer, and I'm gonna use the magic wand tool, I think this is what it's called, to select the area that I'm gonna work in. So I've selected the area on the original layer, and I've selected the other layer to start working on the texture. I'm using a grainy brush. I'm gonna write the name of my brush pack in the description because I don't really remember. So for this texture that I want to make, I'm gonna start big and then I'm gonna work my way down. I don't want to cover the entire shape with the graininess and the texture, just one side to kind of create that gradient. So we're just gonna tap it, and this is so cool. Oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted, exactly where I wanted it to be. So let's start going down and just tap again. And then we're gonna go down to 700. I really want like a heavy contrast to make that gradient really just pop. If we deselect everything, you can see what I'm talking about. I kind of want to add a second color, but I don't want it to be too like visible, just a tiny difference that I'm gonna change in every illustration. I'm gonna do the same exact thing for this upper part here. So I'm gonna select it, create another layer, move to that layer, and here it is. This is basically my idea for the illustrations. I'm just gonna repeat the same process for all the others, and I will be right back. Now I wanna do some packaging. Of course, this is not a real client, not a real project, so we are not gonna work as if it were. The packaging process is so different when you actually have to print it, and again, I have a video about that too. But today we're just gonna work around a mock-up that I found that I think is super cool and really matches the vibe of the branding. So we're gonna take the dimensions of that mockup and work around that. This is the mockup. I really love the shape of this jar. So I opened this part of the mockup here and I saw the dimensions. I recreated them on Illustrator so we know that we are designing exactly in the same size. This is a trick that you can use if you're working on a passion project and you have a specific mockup that you want to work with. Here we have all our illustrations. Look at them. Look at that texture. My God. We have our typography, our logo suite, color palette, and here we have the 5 spices that I've chosen for this packaging. This was a very hard choice because I love a lot of spices, but this is probably my top 5 spices. Comment below your top 5 spices. I don't know. When you're working with a product-based brand that has a lot of products, for the packaging, you kind of have to create some sort of template and create that brand continuity within each element of the packaging, each product. So even if we do 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, it doesn't really matter because we are following the same template, the same layout, you know? Okay, we're gonna start with black pepper. And for black pepper, I wanna use this beautiful blue. I wanna create some sort of movement inside the label because the label is really like tall and we don't really have a lot of information to add. So to kind of fill up the space, I think that our beautiful logo mark fits perfectly. Let's test this on the mockup and see how it actually looks. Okay, I love this. So let's keep working on this template that I'm using for the other spices and see how it works with the others. I worked on the rest, and as you're seeing, I try to use the closest colors to the actual spice, and I did this for a reason. Obviously, I know that we have done the complete opposite for the illustrations because we wanted to convey a more fun, edgy, adventurous side of the brand, but I feel like using really contrasting colors that have nothing to do with the spice could work against us. When you're working on a product-based brand, you always have to keep in mind the context in which the customer is gonna interact with the product. Using colors that do not match the actual spice will work against us because the customer could actually like grab one of the bottles thinking that it's some spice and it ends up being another one. Kind of puts another step in the purchasing experience that doesn't really need to be there. We want to make this easy for our customers. So let's test all the other ones on the mockup and see how they work. Okay, so I've tested the paprika label and we're seeing an issue here. This is an issue that you can come across really easily when you're working on multiple types of packaging, and it's adaptability. As I said, we are working on some sort of template that needs to work for every single product. And even though it works amazingly with black pepper, it doesn't really work with paprika. I know that I said that I wanted to keep like the same colors as the spice, but this way, it doesn't really create enough contrast to maybe catch the eye of the customer and not make the information too confusing. I've also encountered this issue with curry and turmeric, which are the ones that are most similar to the actual spice. So we're gonna have to change everything. As we're seeing now, it has completely changed the look. There is now enough contrast and something cool happened. Now it kind of looks like the spice is going through the label. You can see that texture, you can see the color, you can see all the information, but it has enough contrast that you can actually see them, you know? So we're pretty much done with that. I'm gonna work on a few more assets just to spice everything up again, and I will be right back with the final presentation. Okay, so I've taken some time, I worked on other assets, mockups, and I am so excited to show you the final product. Honestly, this is one of my favorite things that I've done in a really long time. I haven't had the chance to be creative, just let loose and have fun, and I'm so glad again that I got to share this with you guys, so I hope you will love it. So without further ado, let me introduce you Ariste. Okay, what do you guys think? Very important to let me know your top 5 spices. As I said, I had so much fun working on this. I really missed it. I don't know how much I'm gonna be back on this channel. I think I'm gonna just take it a little bit slower, maybe focus on quality instead of quantity. And yeah, if you want to know what I'm up to, I'm always posting on Instagram and TikTok. I honestly don't know when my next video is gonna be, but in the meantime, you can binge watch all my other videos, like this one, for example, where I worked on another really fun project. Thank you so much for still watching. I will see you again in another video next time. Ciao! Bye! Bye? What the fuck is bye? me.